is Arfrigen? How does it affect soldiers, their families, and their jobs? We ask a senior leader to explain the process. Doing what we can to hang on to dwindling resources, Army Reserve sustainability efforts are cutting the high cost of doing business. Remembering those who paid the highest price to maintain our freedoms, the Army Reserve honors its fallen heroes. These stories and more ahead on this edition of Army Reserve Today. Specialist Katie Summerhill, and this is Army Reserve Today. I'm standing in front of the U.S. Army Reserve Command's new headquarters at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, an energy-efficient facility that opened last fall. It is the centerpiece of Army Reserve sustainability. We'll have more on this later in our broadcast. But first on today's program, we'll learn more about Arfrigen, something that affects everyone with an Army Reserve connection. Arfrigen is a term Army Reserve soldiers are hearing more often. The acronym stands for Army Force Generation and is used to describe a predictable cycle of training, mobilization, and deployment in support of the nation's armed forces. Thousands of briefings, tons of written materials, and discussions address it, describe it, and explain it. In its simplest terms, it's no simple matter, but Arfrigen impacts the lives of soldiers, their families, employers, schools, and more. In part one of a continuing series on Arfrigen, Army Reserve Today asked Brigadier General Brian McKiernan, U.S. Army Reserve Command Deputy Chief of Staff, G357, to tell us what it is in terms that everyone can understand.
Well, Arfrigen stands for Army Force Generation, so it's the process we use to provide a predictable and sustainable supply of capabilities to the Army so that they can be employed by combatant commanders against their operational requirements. So in general, it really means it's a progressive readiness model that we provide structure for our units as they progress towards a year that they would be expected to be available in the Army's mission force. Well, Arfrigen really always has been a supply-based model that we would use to provide a structure for our formations to progress through readiness build for that use. But in practice, what we've seen over the years since we started implementing Arfrigen years ago was that our demands were exceeding our available supply of capability. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But going forward, we really see as some of the requirements come down in theater right now, and as we continue to work on our readiness of our units, that this is beginning to change, and we really are going to be able to execute what we would call supply-based Arfrigen. But what it does is, in simple terms, we have 5 pools, so to speak, and we divide our forces up into these 5 pools, and they'll progress through these annual cycles. Reset, 3 years of training and readiness build, and then a year of availability.
Part 2 of this series will appear on the next episode of Army Reserve Today on July 1st. Army Reserve soldiers are teaching rescue techniques to Afghan Airfield Fire Department personnel. Soldiers from the 683rd Engineer Detachment firefighting of Moss Point, Mississippi, show locals what they need to know to protect one of the region's busiest airfields.
Kandahar Airfield, or CAF, launches and lands dozens of airplanes and helicopters a day. But if something goes wrong on the Afghan ramp, a crash, an explosion, or a fuel fire, the 77th Kandahar Air Wing counts on their airfield fire department. The department trained on aircraft rescue firefighting, or ARF, recently with their mentors, airfield firefighters and advisors from the U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force. It's a mentorship that is proving to be very successful.
They're actually starting to teach themselves now, peer teaching, which was our goal overall when we got started here. We're here mostly now just as advisors and safety, just trying to critique a little bit.
The course offers the Afghans the same level of proficiency U.S. Army firefighters achieve at the end of initial entry training. The American trainers pass on knowledge, and it's the Afghan firefighters who are now taking the lead.
I think they're doing an excellent job. I mean, I will go in any fire with them. They've really put their heart and soul into it, and they want to be the best that they can be, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, go fish!
Most of the fire company's drive for success comes from their fire chief, who has a passion for professionalism that would be familiar to firefighters from around the world.
Our firefighters should be ready as a team. We need to have our equipment and our training in order. When a fire happens, we have to save the victims as fast as we can.
Faced with one of the world's most difficult and dangerous jobs, the firefighters of the Kandahar Air Wing Fire Department have taken up the tools and the desire to face any challenge and put it out. Specialist Scott Matheson, Kandahar Airfield, Afghanistan.
Specialist Scott Matheson of the Army Reserve's 319th Mobile Public Affairs Detachment, currently deployed, filed this report from Kandahar, Afghanistan. The price of freedom in America is known to every soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine in and out of uniform. All experience hardships during a military career, but in the time of war, some were called upon to make the ultimate sacrifice. 7 Army Reserve soldiers who gave their lives were honored in the first Fallen Warrior ceremony held at the new U.S. Army Reserve Command headquarters at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, January 10th. Those soldiers remembered in the ceremony were Sergeant Alexander Bennett of Tacoma, Washington, Specialist Spencer Duncan of Olathe, Kansas, Chief Warrant Officer Brian Nichols of Hays, Kansas, Corporal Raphael Aruda of Ogden, Utah, Specialist Daniel Elliott of Youngsville, North Carolina, Corporal Justin Ross of Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Captain Joshua McLemmons of Akron, Ohio. Major General Keith Thurgood, USARC Deputy Commanding General, Support and Chief of Staff, said these 7 soldiers left a mark on those around them.
They made a difference in the lives of the people that they worked for and with. In life, their gift was their service. In death, their gift was their life.
Resources needed by the Army Reserve to operate cost taxpayers millions of dollars each year. Dollars expended for electrical power, water, and other sources of energy impact our mission in support of national defense in times of economic hardship and diminishing budgets. Managers at all levels in the Department of Defense do what they can to keep costs down. But in the Army Reserve, leaders are continually thinking outside the box. The issue is called sustainability, and our leading subject matter experts describe the Army Reserve's forward-thinking efforts in their own words.
Well, I think the short answer is better use of resources that we've been given. In many respects, it's a vision for the future as well. Looking down the road 10, 15, 20 years to determine, what condition the Army Reserve ought to be in, and then backcasting to where we are today so that we can develop, programs and procedures that will allow us to get there. So in many respects, in this, ever diminishing resource environment, we're trying to take the resources that we've been given and make the best use out of them.
When I was a scout, you were told that when you went camping, that you left the campsite better than what you had found it, okay? That's sustainable, all right? Whatever you take out, you're putting back in. Well, maybe you can put back in a little bit more.
We have 3 projects underway right now at places like Fort Hunter Liggett, Camp Parks, both out in California, and then Fort Buchanan, down in Puerto Rico. At Camp Parks and Fort Hunter Liggett, we're looking at energy. And back in April of this year, April of 2011, we did a groundbreaking on a micro solar grid project at Fort Hunter Liggett.
With the solar microgrid array that's going in, eventually, once all 3 phases of that project are done, we will be providing energy back to the power grid during the day.
Currently, the installation is consuming in the neighborhood of about 2.6 megawatts of energy. So this first phase will be able to offset about 1/3 of our consumption.
It's kind of important that we're standing here at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in front of the new U.S. Army Reserve Command headquarters that you see in the background. And what's interesting is that this is a green building. In fact, it's one of the largest green buildings, not only within the entire Department of Defense, but also within the entire state of North Carolina. It falls under what the Green Building Council has developed as green standards for construction. And it's actually a LEED Silver certified building.
One of the next steps that we have to take, and that we've been a little bit lax in doing so, is the education part, telling the people who live, work, and train here what these different applications are doing for them. I firmly believe that because typically your soldiers are from the younger generation, they get this, they're excited about renewable energy as well.
It all starts with the individual soldier, and if we can get every one of the 206,000 reservists that are out there, and the 12,000 plus civilians, doing these sorts of things, then it'll all add up at the end of the day.
Mr. Addison Tad Davis, Command Executive Officer for the U.S. Army Reserve Command, has been named one of General Electric's 2011 Sustainable Innovators. The announcement was made on GE's Ecomagination website in December. Ecomagination editor Michael Parashudel said, GE's Spotlight on Innovators honors the people who work hard to create practical solutions for our planet and economy. People who share the company's belief that good business and environmental stewardship go hand in hand. The article says that Davis knows firsthand how serious the military is taking renewables as a source of energy independence. According to Ecomagination, over a decade ago, Davis instituted a sustainability program aimed at conserving resources on Fort Bragg. These efforts, the article says, caught on at over 30 installations across the country. Davis has been a proponent of reducing government energy costs. He told the American Forces Press Service, "It was the economics of this that really got me excited about sustainability." The 773rd Civil Support Team in Kaiserslautern, Germany, is the Army Reserve's only active weapons of mass destruction civil support team stationed outside of the continental United States. Their mission is to provide technical assistance to host nation first responders in case of a biological, chemical, or nuclear incident. Recently, soldiers from the unit, which is part of the 7th Civil Support Command, also of Kaiserslautern, got a chance to train on important rescue operations skills. Sergeant Valerie Resiniti of the Army Reserve's 221st Public Affairs Detachment tells us what challenges the 773rd had to overcome to complete the training.
You could fly all this building right now, and you would stop right here. All right?
Before these soldiers can become proficient in confined space rescue operations, they have to push through a major obstacle.
First is the fear of heights.
Now.
I was a little hesitant at first. I just wanted to make sure that I was okay to just be able to hang, and then after that, once I knew how to maneuver the rope and use the pulleys, I was like, this is all I have to do? He said yes. I said I'm going, and I went on down.
Steps if you want, or go a little.
Once they establish confidence in their gear, they can focus on the primary task.
The purpose of the training is so that when they're going out into the field, if a man goes down, one of their survey team members or anyone else on their team goes down, they will be able to rescue them with their gear and understanding how to properly do it, and do it by standard.
If it slips down right now. Soldiers spend a week learning the basics of structural awareness, knot tying techniques, and patient packaging.
This is the same training that the firefighters, that the industrial clients, that offshore industry learns. It's just we've geared it more toward military tactics.
Going down.
Prior to this, few, if any, had experience in confined space rescue.
Come on.
It's amazing, because when they come on the first day, it's a jumble bunch of mess. And but by the end of the course, they can do it, and they can do it quite well. Keep hauling.
This type of training helps ensure civil support soldiers are better prepared for the potential hazards of their real-world missions. Army Sergeant Valerie Rezinetti, 221st Public Affairs Detachment.
And that will do it for this episode of Army Reserve Today. From Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and the U.S. Army Reserve Command, I'm Specialist Katie Summerhill. Thanks for watching.